Hello, and you are listening to FPcast, the podcast where we bullshit about the year in pop culture. I am Luke.
And I'm Jacinta.
And this week we're talking about...
Movies, television, collectibles, video games, comics, books, board games, and more.
Fappy!
The Golden Fappies. It's the Fappy Awards.
It is. And to celebrate the Fappy Awards, we have good audio quality again.
We do. We are recording back upstairs in the very insulated toy room, so should be sounding a lot better than it has been for the last half of the year. So very excited about that, and what a great time to come back strong.
Absolutely.
So the Fappies. It sounds like a dirty thing. When I said it to Suzanne, even though we called it that last year, she was thinking of just which celebrities do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we probably could get an hour out of that,
Yeah.
but, it's fun for us, it's not fun for anybody else.
But Fruitless Pursuit, FPcast, it's the Fappies, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, when we were thinking, what are we going to call our award show, the Fappies was the first thing that came to both of us.
You've got to just throw a vowel in there. You may as well start with the first vowel, an A. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Throw it in. It's the Fappies. So we do this every year. We talk about our top 10 favourite movies each. We change the format a bit, honourable mentions, and then we go into some more specific awards. And it's just really good as well as a bit of a reminder of all the great things and not so great things that we saw throughout the year.
Absolutely. So, boys, get your lotion out of the drawer, and girls, get your little special friend out of your drawer and join us for the 2017 Fappies.
Wow. Bring a towel.
Or a tarp. I mean, I don't know how into this you're going to get. Like, maybe start with a tarp, and then if you don't need the tarp, then it's better to have had something bigger than smaller.
Yeah.
If you want to bring a flannel, like, that's totally up to you, but I wouldn't.
You don't want to be looking for a tarp.
No.
When you're already, in the mood.
Yeah, like if you're spilling over the edges, that's too late of a time to get a tarp.
Remember in The Greatest Showman when that guy sat on a piece of newspaper?
Yeah.
I know what was happening there. All right, now, this format, we toyed with a lot of different things throughout the year and said, it'll be top 10 mainstream, and then it'll be top 10 movies you might have missed, but we're not doing that. We're just doing our favourite 10 each because it was too hard.
Yeah, and I think I found personally that I didn't... Like, I liked a lot of those big blockbuster ones, but when it came down to my top 10 of the year, there wasn't heaps of those in there, and to get a 10 of those blockbusters, I found that I was kind of padding things out a bit with stuff that I liked but didn't love.
And, at least have a mental notepad here, because there might be some reminders of things that you missed that you want to catch up on. And that's one of those interesting things. Like, I was on Box Office Mojo, and there's a lot of talk about box office, especially in terms of things like Last Jedi, etc. Is it doing as well? All that kind of nonsense.
Again.
I know,
every time.
During the Fappy Awards as well. And what's funny is when you look at a lot of these films that I think are really great, like Disaster Artist, etc. They haven't even made as much as like Star Wars made in a day. Like no one sees these films, and I think it's ironic that you have people consistently sharing their horrible opinions on things. And I know someone out there is going, well, that's just what you're about to do for an hour. True, but you chose to listen.
Our opinions aren't horrible. What are you doing? Our opinions are excellent.
We tell the truth here, and that's been our modus operandi the whole time. But, people are experts on films, but the majority of people don't watch good films. Like, when you think that the second highest grossing film of the year was Fast 8...
Yeah.
Followed by Despicable Me 3. Like, people have garbage taste. And they confess to know all about film, but I don't even think in a lot of cases, understand even the language of films and what films are trying to do. And I think that's obvious when you hear about American cinema chains having to put up a disclaimer about the 10 seconds of silence in The Last Jedi because people don't understand an artistic choice. So I think that's interesting. So there's definitely some films here that I think have been underrepresented and that people won't have seen. And obviously people don't go to the cinema as much as they would like, but, you know, these will be things that'll be on Netflix and all over the place in the coming year that you
And
can catch up on.
some of these are already on Netflix.
That's right.
There are some that I have rewatched on Netflix.
And this is my most informed list in terms of actually seeing things this year. I've done 192, I think, by the time now we're recording.
That's ridiculous.
So I think the only thing that was on my radar that I haven't seen is the Florida Project.
That's not coming out till next year, though, is it? Or is that this year?
No, it's out at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so I haven't seen the Florida Project. I would have liked to have seen that, but I've pretty much caught up on everything else that I wanted to see that I can think of.
Yeah, I've missed a bunch. I have missed a bunch of things. I'm on like 97 new releases for the year, but to be fair, about 40 of those are Hallmark Christmas movies. So, you know, it'll balance out.
On that said, it's not like there's many things on my list for these awards that you haven't seen anyway, so you haven't missed much. All right, so should we get straight into the way we're going to do this? We're going to both just blurt out our top 10s and then we'll talk about the film, so there's no double ups. Yeah. Talk about the films collectively. So, do you want to start or shall I?
You can go first.
Okay, I think this is in rough chronological order. 10, Brigsby Bear. 9, Baby Driver. 8, Colossal. 7, It. 6, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. 5, Beauty and the Beast. 4, Killing of a Sacred Deer. 3, Blade Runner 2045. I just said I needed to spice this up a bit. Number 2. If we were American, this would have been really full-blown production values right about now.
If it was American, it would have gone for an hour and there would have been like a musical interlude.
Number 2, The Disaster Artist. And number 1, no surprise, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And honourable mentions go to Personal Shopper, Spider-Man Homecoming, Get Out, Mother, Wind River, and Call Me By Your Name. And my favourite animated film of the year was not by Disney this time round. It was Your Name, which anime film, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, right. All right. So mine are in chronological order of the point at which I saw them in the year. So early in the year, we had The Great Wall, T2 Train Spotting, Beauty and the Beast, Get Out, Wonder Woman, Valerian, Wind River, The Big Sick, The Disaster Artist, and Call Me By Your Name. With honourable mentions going to Logan Lucky, Mother, Brigsby Bear, Their Finest, and The Greatest Showman.
A fresh one, straight out of the oven.
Yeah.
So I, of course, misused the word chronological because I just saw it on your list and said it. But yours was time by time.
Chronological,
Mine was just in order to my most favourite.
Okay, that's not what chronological
No,
means.
it's not.
That's numbers.
It's just numbers, isn't it? All right, so that 17 films between us due to a bit of crossover there. Should we run down what we loved about these films?
Yeah.
Sense or two? Last Jedi, obviously, is just really personal experience to me. I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. It is just a big part of my life. Growing up, it's something I've always been around, and I really love the direction that it took. I don't think it fucked with the story or the legacy. I've read a lot of Rian Johnson's thoughts and feelings about how it ties directly to things in other films, even to the point of this whole idea of not fighting in order to empower the next generation. And you think about Obi-Wan essentially gives up to Vader in order to inspire Luke, and the way that Luke...
Orchestra's about to play you off, dude.
Luke drops... That's all right, okay. I'd like to thank Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, Daisy Ridley, Kylo Ren. I love all those things. And the way that even Luke puts down his lightsaber and refuses to take out Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. Lots of things, and he also talked about the mythology of Star Wars in a way that really inspires me, and I think it was a logical way to go. So, yeah, love it. Disaster Artist, we both have.
Yes, yeah. It's just, I mean, the room... means a lot to both of us.
Yeah.
It's a movie that you introduced me to, and you sat me down, you made me watch this fucking thing. I didn't know what the fuck I was watching, and I hated it when I first saw it, and then it just kind of stuck with me and then weaseled its way into my brain. And
Wieso worm.
yeah, and to kind of see, like, we met Greg Sestero, and, reading the book and everything, and just to see it kind of play out on screen was so fantastic. And there's some such great moments and great casting, and Franco does an unbelievable job, and it's just, like, it seems like the most unlikely great movie, but it is such a great movie.
And it's another wonderful shared experience, isn't it? Because The Room is such a shared experience. It's something that you take people to and you all enjoy together. And then it's made by a group of people that we sort of have a soft spot for anyway.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you're sharing your experience with The Room with them, and who are
And,
sharing.
like, they love it, and they're sharing their love with you, and then you
experience.
love it, and then
And it's joyful. And I don't know
Yeah.
how that sort of reads to somebody who isn't a part of that culture, who hasn't gone on that journey. But if you
Yeah.
haven't gone on that journey, start with The Room. And I hope for sure that this comes out with a copy of the original movie as well when
Yeah.
it hits Blu-ray and everything. And I think that will be a great discovery for people to sit down and go on that journey.
Yeah.
Although, see it live at a cinema if you can.
Yeah, I'd seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, should I go and see The Disaster Artist if I haven't seen The Room?" And it's like, why would you? Like, just watch The fucking Room. You won't, like, you'll get it, but you won't get it.
Yeah. Blade Runner 2045. I loved the ideas of that film. I think it's like the perfect, I'm going to sit down and write a film essay about it for uni kind of film. I love the imagery. I'm not a massive Blade Runner fan. The first movie kind of bores me a bit, but I really enjoyed this. And you got me the Blade Runner art book for Christmas. The writer of that is Villeneuve's partner, who's a journalist, and it's so dense. I've only gotten into a bit of it so far, but really goes through the thinking behind what they wanted to do and how they approach things. And it's amazing to me, just as a little example, they built those cities as miniatures, like Weta Workshop. You see photos of these massive cities with all the little lights and all the graffiti. Something that if you picked up that set and put it in a museum or put it in a city square or something, people would just be absolutely amazed. I mean, there's so much artistry and craft in these films, and it just astounds me that people come out of them and go, yeah, that was too long. Like, and don't appreciate, like, there is so much in there, even if the story didn't click with you. Like, there is just so much beautiful artistic work to take away in really all of these films, but people will concentrate on, no, I thought that was a plot hole. And it's like, you, like, fucking open your eyes to these amazing things that people are doing around the world, and that you're not. Killing of a Sacred Deer. Did you ever get to see this?
Oh, no.
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 No? You go, even after Lobster?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a maybe. I think I need to be in a very specific headspace to, and I don't think my carefree holiday time is when I want to be sitting down and watching Killing of a Sacred Deer. It might kill my vibe, I feel.
It's challenging. It's sort of weirdly, deliberately, almost frustratingly obscure. It raises more questions than it answers a lot of the time, but it's just so unique, so genre-busting, has 3 fantastic central performances that, that guy is just, I would see anything that he's doing going forward because it's just so unique. He has the craziest vision, so loved it. Beauty and the Beast. Most populist thing I think we've got on here.
Oh, but it was like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, do they really need to make a live action Beauty and the Beast? Like, and then you kind of see it and you're like, oh no, that's magic. This is fucking magic.
Yeah,
this entire thing is so beautiful. And, there's original songs in this damn thing that are so good. Like, I watched this again, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, because it's on Netflix now, and a couple of days later, I found myself humming a song. I'm like, what the fuck is that song? And it's the song that the Beast sings by himself up in the tower, like up towards the end of the film, and I'm like, oh damn, that's a hell of an earworm.
This ties into really the next film as well, which we both have, which is Valerian. in that sense that I think one of those legacy blockbusters, one of those things that you're going to go back to and keep watching that you love, that even when it's kind of cheesy and a little bit cringe, or even when it has a clunker of a moment, it's something that endears you to it. Rather than, like, turn you off it.
Yeah, there's that little moment at the end of Beauty and the Beast, which I won't say what it is.
Let's say it.
You know what it is.
Time.
That when I first saw it in the cinema, I was like, oh, God, that's so silly. And then I saw it again the other day, and it just filled me with such fucking joy. And I was just like, ah!
And I appreciate that those things don't transcend for everybody, but I think it's almost like, you know how you can have a certain type? Like, there's that sort of Dan Clowes era naive urban misfit girl where, like, some braces or some big teeth or some glasses or something are really gonna, or some freckles are gonna make me go, I like that. And whereas someone else would be like, oh, that's gross. And I think it's almost like that with films. There are just certain things that they're so wrapped in things that you love.
Yeah.
And Valerian is like that for me because it's so fucking ballsy. It's the ballsiest blockbuster of the year in terms of just sheer craziness and just visual madness. And the ideas are so bold. Like, people are acting like Last Jedi took all these crazy risks and things, but I mean, Valerian is just so fucking out there. And it starts off so amazingly, and then you see those two main characters who have no chemistry and just the worst dialogue. And they clunk their way through it, particularly Dahan, but at the same time, I'm not put off by that. I'm just loving the shit out of it. And that's my relationship, for the most part, with Star Wars. I've always gone from going, oh, this is really fucking cool in one scene, to going, oh, that's really, like, just ridiculous in another scene, or just laughing at the dialogue. And that's the original trilogy, it's the prequels. And the thing is, it doesn't turn me off them. Like, I just love those worlds and those things. And look, this is going to be a shocker to internet critics out there, but I know that I'm a smart person and I'm comfortable with that. And I don't need to go, oh, but it was really stupid to prove that I'm smart. Like, I just love it. So... Yeah,
and Valerian's one of those ones that I watched, like, at the time, and I was like, oh, yeah, you know, that was pretty good. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. But it was one that kind of stuck with me, and it was one that I sort of thought back to moments from. And, you know, I got the art book, and looking through that art book is so amazing, and... Yeah, it's probably the most unique film of the year as far as the big blockbusters go, and it's probably the most unique film that nobody's seen, really.
And it's full of so many parts that are just ingenious.
Yeah, and it just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls, and it's just this unstoppable force of all these different stuff.
Maybe it doesn't add up to much, but I just love
it's a fun
the pieces.
Yeah.
I really loved it. I think it was one of those sort of genre refreshers for me. Again, it's one of these things that was insanely popular, and then it seemed like the tide turned on it, and then it was like, oh, people are loving it, so I think it's a piece of shit. It puts the sh in it. But and I've never read the original book, but it was a great journey for me. And again, just visuals were so strong. And I think that's what I was talking about when we go back to Blade Runner, anything like that. When there is craft and thought and ideas and iconography, I love that. Like, good iconography can take me through anything. Like, that's what I want from a superhero movie. I don't care if the plot is, like, totally MacGuffin-y ridiculous, as long as it gives me a vision. And I think it had that. And I think also, you know, in this sort of post-Stranger Things world, it was this opportunity for the snake to eat its own tail again, and to, you know, that's something that's inspired by Stephen King, and then you get this film which has touches of Stranger Things, and the strength was the kids. You had this great version of the clown, and you had a great version of the kids, and great relationship with the kids, and I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. Colossal as well, really enjoyed. That was the Anne Hathaway film where she was controlling the actions of a monster in Japan that was destroying the city.
Oh, was it Japan or Korea?
Oh, I can't remember. But it was all about her kind of breakdown and flaws manifesting as this monster. Again, just a genre-breaking, bizarre idea of a film, and has a kind of twist or elevation of the situation about halfway through that I didn't see coming, and I thought that added a...
Every woman in the audience did.
Yeah, I thought that added a layer that I really enjoyed. And Baby Driver, I've got to be honest, I haven't thought about it as much since, and I think there's that temptation to go, oh, yeah, okay, Baby Driver, you know, and it's got Kevin Spacey in it and all that sort of stuff, but then I was looking at the way I scored it and remembering how I felt after I saw it, and I was just so impressed by what it accomplished, again, like just the craft. So, yeah, I just think it's a really unique film, and, you know, it's kind of a one, like you couldn't have a Baby Driver 2, it's one trick done really well, but it was done really well. And then Brigsby Bear, which is in your honourable mentions.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it that long ago, really, so we're just sort of rehashing a bit, but yeah, just that feeling of nostalgia and ownership of your pop culture properties, and that isolation and loner kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know, I loved it. It had such a great feel, such a great mood, great performances as well.
Great bit of Mark Hamill.
Yeah, and just like, it's just for something that you feel could turn at any moment and be incredibly depressing. It actually stays quite lighthearted and ultimately is quite a warming film, I think.
What I remember from our talking about it, and my way I would still sum it up, is that it's an incredibly unconventional film. It's like nothing you've ever seen before, and then at one point it becomes a pretty conventional film. But it's a great journey getting there. Now, you've got The Great Wall.
I do. Now, this is like the first movie of the year that I absolutely loved.
It was made for you.
It is made for me, really. Like, I enjoy Chinese films, I enjoy Western films, and for me, The Great Wall combines both of them both of the sort of styles of filmmaking in a way that fixes the problems of both, and the pacing is unbelievably quick. Like, there's such a fast film, there's so much going on, the design that's gone into all of this, just the stuff that's on your screen. Yeah, I just love this thing. It's like, there's only been a couple of movies this year that I just want to devour, like a pig sticking their head in a trough of food, and The Great Wall was one of those. Like, I could have walked out of that film and walked straight back into another session of that film. We saw it in 3D IMAX, and it was just the best possible way to see the film.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and amazing design work in there. It's a beautiful and colourful film.
It's so colourful and beautiful. A lot of people are kind of, after being that initial kind of, oh, it's racist backlash, a lot of people are kind of catching up on it now and going, oh, that was actually kind of fun, and oh, it wasn't actually racist at all just because Matt Damon's in it. And yeah, look, if you haven't seen it because you're kind of a bit about it, it'll be on streaming services, if not already. Just check it out. It's the dialogue is awful, it's very clunky, the plot is very simple, but it is just such an unbelievable popcorn movie that not that many people would have bothered to go and see.
Though downsizing is incredibly racist because Matt Damon's in it.
Oh, of course.
He's skinhead in it.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah. My next one was the sequel to Trainspotting, T2, which I loved unexpectedly, I think. I wasn't expecting a lot from this film. You know, it had been like, 20 years or whatever. And you sort of think, well, you know, what are they trying to capture here? Like, does anybody care anymore? And I think what they achieved is where the original Trainspotting has that real energy of that kind of early, the 20-year-old energy. This is tired 40-year-old men, and the story really does a great job of kind of checking in on where they are now, which is great. Like, you know, you like those characters and you want to see how they're kind of all fitting into their lives now, but I think people have accused it of not having the same energy of the first one. It's like, well, what? Like, they're different people now. They're trying to get across a different energy anyway.
And even then, it still gets pretty wild.
It does. And
it's, again, visually amazing.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many devices. Like, you're in the hands of a really solid director and a guy that does a lot of theatre and really just squeezes all the theatricality out of these scenes in the way that he approaches them. So
and like most of these actors are probably like better actors now than they were 20 years ago as well.
That's a really good point.
So they hit this thing out of the park in a way that I was absolutely not expecting. So it really stuck with me, that one.
I should state as well, I love every single movie on your list, so these are all good. Get Out.
Get Out. The thing that I remember from Get Out is watching it in that cinema it was like, I think Get Out probably would have been playing in the independent cinemas as well. We went to the big mainstream multiplex cinema and saw it, and how engrossed and involved the audience was really contributed to this viewing. I mean, like, you know, you guys should all know what Get Out is now. It's the black boyfriend goes home to meet the white family, and shenanigans ensue. And like, it's great. It's just a great film. It's obviously great commentary and all that sort of stuff. And there's just some clever little moments that kind of make you almost question how you think about race and how you think about, the treatment of people of colour and stuff like that. And I think it's just a great film.
There's some really great lessons to learn about film in there as well. I'm keep harping on this internet criticism thing, but I think we're in an age where it's so important because people are in a mindset where they're looking to find fault in things that they love. And people often bring real world logic to things. And when you're dealing in a medium of film, you got to remember that a lot of the time, ideas and themes are far more important and interesting than like everyday logic. And I think a great example of that happens in Get Out, which deals with this sort of it uses hypnotism as a point, as a catalyst in the story, and that becomes a sort of leap of faith in a way, and a suspension of disbelief. But the visuals of that, the way that they commit to that and sell that through these visual devices, and the way that that idea plays into a much larger discussion is so much more interesting than going, oh, but that wouldn't happen in real world. You know, and if people could get out of that mindset and embrace ideas and think of things as a sort of allegorical, you know, it's so much more interesting. So I love the choices they made.
Yeah. My next one was Wonder Woman. I think we said a few weeks ago, well, a month ago or so, when we were talking about Ragnarok, that, probably Spider-Man is probably the best superhero film of the year.
It's in terms of superhero movies,
yeah. It's not on my list because Wonder Woman was my favourite. There was just a beautiful quality to Wonder Woman, and I think, look, most of it comes from Gal Gadot's performance, but... and look, I know it doesn't stick the ending for everybody. I know that everybody with a CGI monster and all that sort of stuff, but all the stuff that comes before it is just so beautiful and magical, and the dialogue and the delivery and just the way they talk about things. You forget that they can talk like that in a superhero film, and it's not weird.
Well, you're getting onto that same point, really, that idea that the ideas are more important. It's the themes and ideas that make that movie stick. It's what it represents that has made it so important to people this year, as opposed to whatever kind of lazy comic book tropes happen at the end. You know, it outweighs that, and I think people block themselves from having a good time because they're so worried about, I think, to be honest, looking stupid.
Yeah, and I think that they felt like it was... Because this is a movie that obviously women embraced and young girls embraced, and I feel like there is always that little bit of a backlash against things that women and little girls love. And so you do get a lot of dudes coming out, oh, Wonder Woman sucks, and the ending was shit, and it's like, yeah, but... Like, we felt really great, like, watching all the rest of it, you know, and even with Shitty Moustache Man at the end of the film, which was quite funny, to be fair. But, it's about how, like, my 10 is movies that made me feel joy. Like, that warmed my heart and made me feel like I was in a big fucking fluffy blanket when I was watching them, you know, so... that's what Wonder Woman is for me. Like, it's like sitting there in winter with a cup of cocoa and a big fluffy blanket. It made me feel fucking fantastic. take on the world.
Which is a weird segue to Wind River. Did that make you feel that way?
Well, Taylor Sheridan is Taylor or Tyler? Taylor Sheridan. His work is so.
I feel it's Tyler, but I'm not sure. I
Either
trust
way,
you.
T. Sheridan.
T. Sheridan. Nailed it.
The big T dog. He just creates these worlds that I think he said in the review initially that they're realistic, but yet they feel so otherworldly. Like, this was his directorial debut. He wrote this one, he wrote Sicario, and he wrote Hell or High Water as well. But like his dialogue and the stories that he chooses to tell are just magnificent. Like, I fucking love his shit so much, and I'm really excited for Sicario too.
I did too. I mean, this is the one that has to make you a convert, because you realise it's not a trick. Like, this guy, you're seeing some amazing talent when you think that we've had those 3 films in just a couple of years.
Yeah.
Plus, he directed this one.
And it's beautiful. Like, this film is beautiful.
And he's more than capable, you can see now, of taking his own work and turning it into a film. I enjoyed Renner in it, and I enjoyed Elizabeth Olsen in it. I think you've got all the performances, really strong, really thoughtful. But I was just blown away that this dude is just the real deal. And he's someone, you don't hear him spoken about.
No.
And I hope that within a couple of years you are going to hear him spoken about a lot, because his work's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great film.
Next up for me was The Big Sick, which, I love a good romantic comedy, but what I love is a good, thoughtful romantic film as well. And this was just, it's the pick of the litter as far as romantic movies go, like, by a long way this year. It was fantastic. Like, it was just so thoughtful, and the character interactions, like, particularly, like, Ray Romano was so fucking good in this film.
Yeah, the parents were really strong.
Yeah. And look, I think most people have probably seen this thing, and they're not harping on it too much, but it is a lovely, gentle, thoughtful film, and I love the kind of feeling at the end. Like, you've been on this whole journey with this character, and then suddenly this other character kind of comes back in, and they haven't been on that journey with you, and you kind of expect things to go a certain way, and then you go, oh, hang on, this character isn't anywhere as informed as the audience is, and so why would they even, think in that way? And I sort of loved that kind of, oh shit, because in any other conventional movie, it would just be like, oh, bang, everything's happy, and we're just going to go ahead with it, and I really loved that.
No, it was good. And Call Me By Your Name, we've talked about very recently.
Yeah, so it's fucking magnificent, and I love it. I'm not going to go over it again, we talked about it last week, but like, as soon as I saw it, I knew it was in my top 10, like, without even questioning it at all. And
it's definitely, my list is my 10 favourites, but if we were doing an objective, what do I think are the 10 best made films? It's so up there.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. There were 17 films. There were 17 really great films.
They were 17, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next category is our...
Oh, hang on. I want to go through my honourables, bro.
Oh, we didn't do on my... Yeah. All right, we're doing our honourables as well?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Go.
Okay, well, how about we do one each?
All right.
Okay. For me, honourables was just Logan Lucky. I don't think a lot of people bothered to necessarily go and see this. It's not, like... the most hard-hitting film of the year. It's essentially just a redneck heist film, but I liked the chemistry in the cast and the performances. It's Channing Tatum and Adam Driver. Daniel Craig is so funny in this thing. I watched it again the other day just to confirm, because I was like, I think I really like Logan Lucky, but I'm not sure. And within about 5 minutes, Adam Driver had me laughing so much that I was just like, bang, he's so great in it. I really loved him in that.
I loved Personal Shopper, a very strange, slow, surreal ghost story starring Kristen Stewart, who I thought was fantastic in it. And it has some really powerful images, and nothing is handed to you on a platter. It's one that you sort of have to think about, and it's slow, it's kind of sensual in parts, and it just sticks with you. I thought that was really cool. We both got Mother,
yeah. This was a film that I think this was the week after It and I was very concerned about the content of this film. And so I looked up every fucking thing that was going to happen in it. And you know what? Being informed about what the movie was actually about made it an even more enjoyable viewing experience for me, because I got to watch all those puzzle pieces fit into place, and I loved that. By the time, I mean, I didn't know that Domhnall Gleeson was in this film, so when he turned up and I was like, oh, it's Domhnall Gleeson, and then when I realised what his character was, I was just like, oh fuck, this is so good.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's such a ballsy film, and it's Aronofsky doing this film which stars Jennifer Lawrence. I was looking at the numbers for it. No one saw this film. But
I imagine people probably would have thought it was like, would be really confronting. And like, it is. Like, it's quite confronting and it's pretty like crazy, but I don't know. I feel like it wraps itself up in a pretty satisfying way.
It's just a wild ride.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to submit to it. And it didn't have a big lead up either. I felt like we were only just hearing about it, and then it was out a few weeks later, which I kind of liked. So a surprise thing. I've got Spider-Man Homecoming because it is my favourite superhero movie of the year, in the sense that I think it is the best superhero movie. It's got a great balance of action and humour, and it has a really great villain who is multifaceted. And I've said this a few times this year, so it just comes together in a strong way. So also testament to the fact that Spider-Man's not one of my favourite characters by any means, but I thought this was the best put together.
Yeah, for sure. I've got Brigsby. We've already talking about that. I also had their Finest, which was one that I caught up on a couple of weeks ago. I'd kind of heard middling things at the time when it came out. But when I actually watched it and really loved it and went to log it on Letterboxd, everyone was kind of rating it like that 3.5, 4 sort of thing, which I rated it a 4. It's a World War II film. Gemma Arterton plays a lady that comes onto a team that's making like propaganda films, basically, for cinemas. And yeah, it's just a really interesting sort of film about the importance of the female voice at a time when a lot of the young men are obviously being taken off, and so a lot of the voices that are coming out are like women and like older people and all those sorts of people that weren't necessarily getting to kind of have their say when all the young men were running the world. And it's just, I just really loved it. It just really clicked for me, and yeah, worth a look if that sounds like your sort of bag.
And last one, because everything else is on my list is on yours.
Yeah, Greatest Showman for me. Like, again, it's one of those just joyful films. Like, it made me feel so good. And I think every single day since I've seen it, I've listened to that soundtrack. Like, every single day. And, yeah, I just love it. And, yeah, we talked about it last week, so I'm not going to go into it.
In your wheelhouse.
It is, yeah, it's like, it's like the Great Wall. Like, that's the kind of the two ends of the spectrum. Great Wall was specifically made for me, and Greatest Showman was specifically made for me.
Now, these other categories, we had lots of crossover, so we didn't even bother trying to make separate lists, really.
Yeah.
Like, these are just talking points. So, let's talk about our favourite performances of 2017. I think, obviously, Timothée Chalamet in Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah.
I think he's going to take the Oscar. I thought he was really great.
Yeah.
We talked about him recently. Really enjoyed Bill Skarsgård in It as Pennywise. I know people talk like big game about Curry's Pennywise, but I rewatched that afterwards and I didn't think much of it. And I think Skarsgård sells it. And I think to take like a sexy man and turn him into this thing, just like eyes-wise, is really good.
Yeah, he's not a sexy man, but he might be to somebody, not to me.
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah.
In Lady Bird. She's fantastic, and
that's a 2018 film, dude.
No, it's not.
It's not in America, but it is here.
And she was great. Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, she was cool.
Yeah, especially considering like it's a big action film, and she really sells that action. Like she legitimately feels like she could just destroy you, but also there's a lot more that she has to do.
Yeah.
In there, including her like more vulnerable side, and I really enjoyed how textured that was.
Yeah, I nearly put Atomic Blonde in my honourable mentions, but it just got edged out.
It was a good film. and a good alternative to John Wick.
Yeah.
And I've got a double mother performance here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with quadruple mother performance, really.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the movie mother. I'm talking about there were some fucking great screen mothers that stole movies this year. Alison Janney in I, Tonya is just a fucking horrible beast of a woman and was hilarious. Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird, again, another problematic mother who just steals every scene she's in. I really enjoyed Nicole Kidman in Killing of a Sacred Deer. And you just reminded me of how much I fucking loved Holly Hunter as another difficult mother in Big Sick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so 4 women playing problematic mothers, and they were all just really made a big impact in the films that they were in. Also really loved Barry Keoghan?
Kean, I think.
Kean? Barry Keoghan in Killing of a Sacred Deer. He was fantastic. You mentioned Daniel Craig, and that is a great performance in Lucky Logan.
It really is. There's a bit like right at the start where he sits there and gets eggs out of a vending machine and sits and eats these packaged eggs, and you're just like, fuck. Like, how is that simple thing just so wonderful to watch?
All his physicality, his mannerisms, it's fantastic. And I think that it's
the most fun he's had in a film for a long time, I think.
And it's a complete antithesis of a Bond character, and it's sort of a not so subtle reminder that he's an actor and he's capable of doing lots of different things. And my favourite animated performance, I thought, let's throw in a voice performance. The one that stuck with me was Justin Theroux in Ninjago.
He made Ninjago.
As Garmadon. Yeah, I fucking loved what he did there.
Yeah, he was really good. Oh, so you're not rating Ewan McGregor in Beauty and the Beast?
Ewan McGregor
what if she was the one?
Was the worst animated voice performance of the year, but like we said, still endearing. It was part of what made that movie charming.
Absolutely, yeah. It was
movie's braces.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I mean, I liked. I haven't seen all of those films, but the ones I have seen, I did like. I also really loved Natalie Portman in Jackie.
Feels like so long ago since we saw Jackie, but it was this year.
Yeah, there's just a scene where, obviously, the inevitable has happened and she's washing the blood off her face. And it is still, we watched it right at the start of the year, and it is a scene that has stuck with me for, 11 months or whatever. And she just does a fucking great job in that film.
She was really good.
And the obvious one, James Franco in Disaster Artist.
Yes.
He's
fantastic.
It's just amazing, how can you...
He transformed.
How can you put that skin on and not be changed forever?
And it's so brave as well. He realised how unflinching he would have to be in order to really embrace it. The sex scene bit is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's such a great moment of not just capturing, I guess, what it must have been like, but just showing you how, if Tommy is completely oblivious and uncompromising, then Franco had to meet that, and he did.
Yeah, and you would have to be so concerned about doing a job that wouldn't upset Tommy. Because he had to interact with Tommy so much during the but he would have had to just throw all that away and just go, fuck Tommy, it doesn't matter what he thinks, and just not worry about it at the time, and then just worry about it later.
Just worried that he doesn't get stabbed or thrown out a window. And favourite movie moments of 2017, you wrote down yours first, and I absolutely agreed with all of them, so do you want to start that?
Yeah, so right at the start of the year, Triple X is nobody's favourite film from this year.
Maybe didn't agree with this one. I don't remember this one, to be honest.
It's so good. He fucking okay, so Donnie Yen's entrance in this film, he crashes through this glass ceiling, rolls on this table, and he's just shooting every motherfucker in the room. Yeah. And he flips his leather jacket off his shoulders for reasons that I cannot remember. But he slides across this table and he looks so badass, and it is the best moment moment of that film.
Who did we give the Golden Fappy to last year? That's our favourite pop culture person of the year, the person that accomplished the most. Did we give one? That's the last award.
I think we did, but I can't remember who it was.
Because Donnie Yen should have been up there. Because there was a good year for, like, Donnie.
It was a good Yen year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty obvious. The No Man's Land scene in Wonder Woman. Like, holy shit.
Best part of the film.
Yeah. Really iconic scene from that film. It's so great.
And it's the scene where, as a character, as a filmmaker, as a franchise, it's like drawing this deliberate line in the sand.
Yeah, and watching the behind-the-scenes stuff from that as well, like, she did all that shit. Like, it was just a big, muddy field, and it was cold and disgusting and gross, and she's like, I'm gonna do it. And they were just like, oh, fucking okay. And there's explosions and shit, and, oh, magical. In The Disaster Artist, there is a moment towards the end that filled me with pure joy, and it's when a character is sitting there, and I won't contextualize it. If you've seen the film, you'll know what it is, and they just go, do it!
I want to see that cut into lots of memes in the future.
Oh, it was just like, it's a funny moment. It's funny because of who it is. It's just all round fantastic. From Greatest Showman, I really love the performance of Rewrite the Stars, which is Zac Efron and Zendaya, and they're doing all the acrobatic stuff while singing, and it was just so imaginative and so well choreographed, and it's a great song too. In Atomic Blonde, there's a fight scene in an apartment that's all just it's one big long shot. And
it starts in an elevator.
Yeah, and I love shit like that.
That's really good.
I don't even care if it's like digitally stitched together or whatever. Like, my experience of sitting there watching a big one-shot fight scene it's just magical.
It's become a trope, and you know that first season of Daredevil does that hallway scene, which is good.
Yeah.
And but then they continually try to do it, and I'm not always latched into it. But this one it goes from an elevator, it's got a lot of verticality, it goes through a staircase, it goes out to a car. It's so good. It's the best sequence in the film, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah. And my last one is obviously the ship being destroyed in The Last Jedi, the one with the couple of seconds of silence. You know the one, if you've seen the film.
And mine is the little scuffle that happens with the Red Guards in The Last Jedi, and everything sort of leading up to that and immediately following that. I just absolutely love. It's a big badass fight, but there's also character-wise, it's space opera, and I fucking love it. I love that shot of the giant pink joy in Blade Runner 2045, and also in context of the film, what that represents at that point, and where Ryan Gosling's character is at that point. Because, you know, you see it in trailers and things, and yes, it's a striking image, but it's a kind of gut punch in the film at that part. I want to talk about credits, because the closing credits of Good Time, the
Robert Pattinson,
which it's an Iggy Pop song, isn't it? I think it's
playing over the end. Yeah, it is.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
So that closing credits was great. The closing credits of Call Me By Your Name similarly is great.
Yeah.
And the opening titles of Valerian, that opening sequence is mind-blowing. So beautiful. And I didn't have anything from Great Wall, but you reminded me, I love those crane ladies. Just that idea of them having these spears and jumping off the wall on bungees, spearing monsters and then springing back up onto their platforms.
That's why I didn't really have any moments from Great Wall, because I loved so much of it. Like, it just keeps building for me, and there's a bit where like fucking blades come out of the wall, and I'm just like, yes.
But yeah,
that scene in particular is very cool.
It stuck with me. All right, now let's do this. See, so great movies you may have missed. So these are some things, just some quick mentions. This is where you get your notepad out of things that, look, they weren't in our top 10, but they were really interesting films that if you haven't seen, you might want to check out if you ever stumble across them. For me, if you're into something really weird, there's The Lure, which is the crazy foreign cannibal mermaid movie, where they work in a like crazy nightclub, and it's just visual and musical and bizarre. The Transfiguration, which was the vampire story, or is it a vampire story about the young black kid living in a impoverished area who's obsessed with vampires and thinks he is one himself. The Love Witch, which is a deliberate sort of, it looks like it came out of the 60s, like a lurid softcore kind of crazy feminist movie, which is all bizarre, and Cuso, which is really for the strong stomach. That is by far the grossest, most deliberately like sickening, challenging, funny, weird sort of anthology movie. Hannibal Buress is kind of in it, but yeah, if you've got a strong stomach. Dramas that stood out, I love A Good Time with Robert Pattinson. We just talked about that. Really enjoyed Lady Macbeth.
That's the only one I haven't caught this year that I regret not watching.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of historical drama. And then horror-ish wise, Raw, which was the French, I think, cannibalism movie, which has some really striking imagery. A Ghost Story, I know it's got Casey Affleck in it, but he's covered in a sheet. That is a very slow, ponderous movie, but it all adds up to something that I think is really exciting. Girl with All the Gifts.
Yeah, it's one we both have on our list. I think this is I'd read the book before I saw this film, and I think it's actually one of those rare ones that I think the film actually improves on the book. It was just a nice... I know people are pretty sick of zombies, but it's kind of a nice, thoughtful sort of zombie movie with some nice relationships.
Zombie dystopian, child protagonist.
Yeah.
Great performances, thoughtful, keep you going. And Better Watch Out, which was that weird sort of Christmas horror... almost a bit of a bastardization of Home Alone kind of fucked up thing, which was interesting and surprising, and a much better option than The Babysitter.
Yeah. My only other ones were Jackie, which we've already mentioned. I think it's... a lot of people would have dismissed it because they may not think that it's their sort of thing, but it is actually a pretty great performance and a good film. It sort of does expect that you know the story a little bit, and it really does focus, obviously, on... Jackie Onassis there, but it was a good one, and The Promise, which I liked. It's a bit of a arduous Armenian genocide film, which is not going to be for everybody, but it's pretty strong, and I thought it was quite good.
And it stars Oscar Isaac.
It does, and Christian Bale as well.
Christian Bale was really under the radar this year in what he chose. It's interesting because Natalie Portman as well. I watched Song to Song.
Oh, yeah.
And that stars Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling, Natalie Portman, and Rooney Mara.
Fassbender's in it as well, I think.
Yeah, Fassbender.
Yeah.
And
Val Kilmer in that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it made, I think, $44,000.
I've heard it's not great.
Well, it's not that it's not great. It's just that Terrence Malick makes films that have a very, very different sensibility.
Okay.
And it's like, are you willing to go with that? I think he expresses like human experience in an interesting way because he doesn't tell like narrative as such. It's all fragments. And if they go to a party and they go drinking, you see like montages and bits of dialogue and just fragments. Sort of like when you woke up the next morning and you thought back about that party.
Okay. How
you would actually experience it as opposed to like a script and story. So... And it's a lot of them fucking around. The best thing you would love about it is Fassbender, because they improv a lot. I don't think they have a lot of script stuff. Just becomes like an orangutan on the beach. He's just fucking around and he squats down and he chases Rooney Mara with his arms up above his head and he's jumping around and screeching and... I was like, man, if I could get a gif of this, it would be going straight to you. This is really good. Let's change the tone just a tad. Biggest film disappointments of 2017. Things that we hoped were going to be good, but let us down a bit.
Yeah.
For me, Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one too.
Because I really loved Godzilla, and I expected something that kind of reached that caliber of like just an enjoyable blockbuster, but I never connected with it, and I never felt that the actors were really... I think the biggest problem was Kong wasn't really a character in it, and he didn't develop any sort of interesting relationships with any of the characters, whether that was antagonistic or otherwise.
Yeah, I guess my point of conflict with this one is I really love the Peter Jackson Kong movie, and you can't. It's unfair to directly compare things, but I just wanted it to be as good as or better, and it was not. It just lacked the heart of Peter Jackson's film, and it was fine. There was a couple of nice moments, but I think ultimately kind of came out of it just sort of going,
Rough Night was a huge disappointment for me because you're putting together a lot of things I like. You've got Scarlett Johansson, Kate McKinnon, you've got creative team of Broad City in there as well, and I think it was such a lackluster, unambitious sort of facsimile of bad male movies from 10 years ago that it had nothing to offer, and a horrible Australian stereotype in there as well.
Yeah.
Dark Tower, I was really looking forward to sort of finding out about that and what it was all about. And obviously it didn't deliver for anybody. Passengers, again, early talk about that, and you've got Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, and it feels like it should all work, and it doesn't really go anywhere.
It's just because the undertone's so creepy. I think that's half of the movie's problem.
And, well, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of talk about that, and then I feel like it wasn't as creepy in the actual experience of watching it. But it was just lackluster for me. It was a concept that they never, they spent half the movie setting up, and then the second half not knowing what to do with it. And this is really controversial. I'm going to say Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and only because I have huge expectations for it. I just wanted to love the absolute fuck out of it. And the problem was, I kind of watched it once and forgot about it, and there's bits I love in it. The Mary Poppins bit is amazing. There's lots of good stuff, but ultimately, even to watch it a second time and go, well, are my expectations tempered? I know that there's a lot of stuff I have to sit through, and I think maybe it was spoiled by the fact that I'd seen most of the good stuff in the trailers, and the movie just gave me a lot of talking that I hadn't seen.
I only had one other one that kind of shattered me a little bit.
This is going to be controversial as well.
Well, I know this is a film that's on a lot of people's top 10 list, but
and I agree with you.
Dunkirk should have been the easiest fucking home run of the year for me. This movie, I should have walked out of this being like, fuck yes, fucking planes and shooting, and I hated it. I hated the choices that Nolan made. I think there's a very good movie in there somewhere, but I just hated... I hated the timeline stuff. And look, I know a lot of people will like that and be fine with it. I just think he fucked around with it too much.
I think a lot of people didn't realise it was happening. If you think about the fact that you've got the same people that don't understand seconds of silence in a movie... I had like I said in a previous podcast, I had a discussion with... someone who should know better, who knows a lot about history, and was saying that they thought it was an amazing film. And I said, did you find the timeline thing unnecessary? And they had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, there were 3 different timelines, and they were intercut, and characters were here, and then they were there. Oh, yeah, I'd probably have to watch it again to notice that. And it was like, no, you didn't even notice that he was doing that.
Yeah.
So I think this shows some sort of light and shade with that we're not just... and it's probably a criticism that would be fired at me more, just but filmmakers and visions and, people go, well, you've got a lot of pretentious feelings about this stuff and I just want to go and enjoy a movie. But this is actually the opposite, where I think that the choices of the director and the ability to try, the desire to make it more than it was,
and
was a detriment.
And it's a thing we've spoken about before as well, that the director putting themselves above the story and making themselves feel very present in the story, which gave me the shit. Because this is a story that is a great fucking story. The Dunkirk rescue is unbelievable. And there hasn't been a modern sort of movie. Actually, Their Finest, people have said that was the best Dunkirk movie to come out this year, and you know what? It kind of is. And it just the fuckery ruined it. This could have been, a lot of people's entry into this story, and I don't know. It just felt like a waste, and I expected to love the shit out of this thing, and I really did not.
Worst movie of 2017. Now, you haven't really weighed in on this.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Oh, my worst is maybe I I didn't go out of my way to see any movies that I was pretty sure were going to be shit. So I haven't seen or I haven't finished any of these that you've put down. But for me, probably the worst is I didn't like Cars 3, but Cars 3 is not for me. I didn't like Pirates of the Caribbean. They're probably my 2 worst of the year.
Last year we agreed Yoga Hosers was the worst movie. This year my runners-up are Book of Henry and Collateral Beauty, both of which have just bizarre premises that should never have got past the paper stage. But my least favourite movie, and I know this is a betrayal because it stars best bloody actor in the world, Sam Worthington, but was The Shack, which is this weird, manipulative Christian propaganda movie which gets worse and worse as it goes. And it was one of those things where you sort of watch it and go, oh, now I know why people should keep their religion personal, because kind of sounds a bit silly when you say it out loud. And especially when there are actors being, I'm Jesus and look, I'm hugging your dead daughter.
Yeah. I only watched half of it. I didn't mind it that much. I think it's probably just not for me in the way that Cars was not for me. But I just don't know why the fuck, though, like, Sam Worthington's in this film.
It was
like,
fucked.
I don't know. Weird.
And our favourite, let's go quickly through some of this other stuff because we've got to be somewhere soon. Favourite TV shows of 2017?
Yeah.
We're mainly a film podcast at the moment, really, but just to throw it in there, I thought the newest seasons of BoJack Horseman, Lady Dynamite were hilarious. They were, and also really poignant, particularly in BoJack's case. Master of None also was fantastic. 3 shows that are getting better each time, which is fantastic. And American Vandal was great as a new thing. And I really enjoyed the Twin Peaks revival, although I've got to admit I haven't finished it. I've got to go back and do that probably in the holidays. American Gods I really enjoyed, as well as Handmaid's Tale. I really enjoyed Glow. This is just an advertisement for Netflix. And I think last year for us was the year of Downton Abbey. We discovered Downton Abbey. We went through it all and we obsessed over it. And this year it was Vikings. We watched all of Vikings and loved it, though. I haven't caught up. I'm only 3 episodes into the new season because I forgot that I'm getting Vikings every week.
Yeah, I only watched the first 2. I'm quite behind. I like it when I was watching Vikings. My favourite thing is like...
Oh, no, you're the same because the first episode was 2 episodes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would, like, tweet things about how I hated Ragnar, and I hadn't tagged anybody in it, but Clive Standen kept favouriting all my tweets about how I hated Ragnar, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so special. My favourites, I try and keep with new TV shows. My absolute favourite this year, hands down, beyond everything else, and it is slipping in on a technicality because it is finished in 2017, was the Korean drama Goblin. Goblin is like my favourite thing, like ever, like forever. I really love Legion. I thought Legion was just some crazy shit that I just was so unexpected, and I am really looking forward to seeing where that goes. And also The Handmaid's Tale. Like, how can you go past The Handmaid's Tale? It was just unbelievable, and I'm really loving that they're going to do a second season because it goes beyond the book now. I want to see where these characters go, and it was fantastic, so good.
I agree. And look, this is a staple. This is one of our favourites, the pop culture crushes of the year. My new ones were really loved Ana de Armas as Joy in Blade Runner. Fell in love with her and really enjoyed Cara Delevingne for the first time as Laureline in Valerian. Really grew attached to her as the movie progressed.
Right.
Rediscovered Abby Cornish this year, popping up in quite a few movies. And
the little Cornish pixie.
Yeah, I really like her. I really like Abby Cornish. Thought it was a really good year for Aubrey Plaza, and I really liked Florence Pugh in Lady Macbeth. She got my attention.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously the big winner this year, no surprise, was Daisy Ridley. That was very cemented. And
boring.
No, but got to be. She's she might be eclipsing Scarlett for me. I'm really enjoying her.
Dude. Mine were like Dan Stevens. Like, I know that we said last year was Downton Abbey year. Wasn't really that into him last year, but like this year with Legion and Beauty and the Beast, and I still think, like, as a person, I think he's quite boring. Like, I don't like watching his interviews or anything like that, but as a performer, like, just something clicks
Oh,
when he
yeah.
gets in front of the camera, and I think he's just such a wonderful performer.
But this is about the fantasy, isn't it? Like, we're not talking about these people as real people. We're talking about the magic that is woven on screen,
I know,
which is the
but-
result of lots of different things. Because, I mean, I follow Anna de Armas on Instagram, and I've seen her in other movies like that, Knock Knock and stuff like that, and not thought anything. And Instagram, you look at, of course she's gorgeous, but you see her having a life and in normal
Yeah.
clothes, and it's, you know, she's a person. It's just,
Yeah.
but what I was sold as joy in that, all the costuming and the big, huge billboard images and everything like that, I fell in love with that. So it's and it's the same with Daisy Ridley. Like, she's can be looked very ordinary looking. You could imagine her in a fish and chip shop in Britain somewhere. But and you know, there's not. But like seeing her on the big screen doing that stuff, and you know. That's the beauty of cinema, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Also, Gong Yu, who's the guy from Goblin, like, I just think he's so fucking beautiful. And
Give him a goblin.
Yep. And Gal Gadot is so
Yeah.
fucking captivating. Like, I don't normally put ladies on my list, but, like, she's so transcendent. Like, it's just, like, I love I love listening to her speak. I love, like, just kind of existing in her universe, basically.
I agree. I think the reason she's not on my list, and I love it a bit, is just that she's too... I don't mean this age-wise. I mean, like, maturity-wise. She's, like, so grown up. She's, like, just the epitome of an adult that has everything together.
Yeah.
And would want a billion times more than I am ever able to give anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just such a strong... just intimidating to me because... she's just on this other plane.
Yeah, absolutely. I do actually have one more. There's a guy called JJ Field that he's kind of like British period drama guy. Like, he's in all of those sorts of things, and he's been in a bunch of things that I've seen before. But I watched an older film of his called Austenland, which is kind of like a Jane Austen theme park thing. And I watched it again last night, and God, I have such a fucking insane crush on this guy. Like, he's like if you cross Tom Hiddleston with Lee Pace. Like, he is magnificent. And this was the year that I really kind of got stuck into the field. But
That would be like shitting on a steak. Why would you cross
No,
Lee
it's
Pace with Tom Hiddleston?
beautiful. He's so beautiful. And he's married to Nev Campbell from Party of Five.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the worst thing is his surname Field is spelt wrong. It's Feild, which annoys me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't stick your dick in that Lee Pace soup. I keep that clean.
No, he's so good. Anyway.
And you mentioned Dan Stevens. This is just it's something I think is interesting. Good year for him. Beauty and the Beast, Legion, The Man Who Invented Christmas, and Colossal. 4 movies that were fine. A man who
Was he in
invented...
Colossal?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was her partner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So I overheard a bit of a podcast that Suzanne was listening to, where someone was saying, "Oh, Dan Stevens, he can't pick a role to save his life," and I was thinking,
Yeah, you
"Look
can.
at what he's fucking doing this year.
Yeah.
He's tearing it up." And I thought it was a good year for Aubrey Plaza as well. Ingrid Goes West, Legion, and The Little Hours. You could do worse than watching any of those.
Yeah, and she extends herself a bit.
Yeah.
In these, which is good. I mean, if you've got your brand, stick to your brand. But it's nice to do other stuff.
Well, it's about what you're given, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, when you think there's a finite amount of movies that come out a year, like, people go, well, why did this person do this? It's just the same. And you go, okay, there weren't any extra movies that were going to be made this year. So slot that person into the movies that already exist. Because that was it. That was all that was coming out. There's not like Aubrey Plaza goes, oh, but I want to do this. And then suddenly 3 new movies pop up on the timeline for this year. It doesn't work like that. So there is a limited amount of acting jobs every year. And all these people have to shuffle around and slot into them. So they take what they can get. And a busy year for Domhnall Gleeson, and I noticed this because he always has a busy year.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah, and you were right. You said, we talked about this, and you said, well, it's because he plays small parts, and it's true. Like, you know, but this year he did The Last Jedi, he did Crash Pad, he did Goodbye Christopher Robin, and he was the lead in both of those. He was in Mother, and he was in American Made.
And he's got Peter Rabbit
Yeah.
coming out pretty soon as well. Like, he's
a busy prick.
Yeah, I mean, like that. Like, his dad does about 1 million movies a year as well. So maybe it's just like the family work ethic.
Totally forget his dad is
Brendan Gleeson, because they don't
That's
look
crazy.
anything alike.
Well, they're gingers.
Yeah, maybe he's just trying to get all his work in before he starts to look like his dad and all his offers dry up.
There's a lot of talk in the Last Jedi visual dictionary about Hux's dad, who Hux had killed, and who was like a big, big wig prior to that. So there you go. There's your next spin-off movie.
Yeah.
Hux's
his daddy issues.
Yeah, get Brendan Gleeson in there.
A Star Wars story.
Yeah, fucking love that.
Yeah.
Do you know Hux's first name?
Armitage.
That's so good.
You want to ask me some fucking Hux facts, man? I got your Hux facts.
And finally, the Golden Fappy, our last award for the best pop culture person of the year.
Yeah, and I think it was going to be a different person for about 10 months of this year.
Yeah, which was Taika.
Yeah.
Taika Waititi. And although we were disappointed somewhat in Ragnarok, just because he's like makes some of the best films ever, and I feel it was kind of compromised. What he did in terms of representation in that film and sort of the eccentricity that he brought to it and the possibilities that he kind of opened up with that, and just being like just a wonderful positive presence all year, and regardless of what we think of Ragnarok, and we still rate it at like 3.5 or something.
Yeah. Which is about
the Metacritic rating. There's no denying he brought a lot of people joy this year. So and he's just a really cool guy. But he didn't make his best movie ever or anything like that. So we have to give it instead to
Gal Gadot.
Yeah, who inspired a lot of people this year. Put out a movie that was like really uplifting for a lot of people, and I think is going to have ramifications that proved a lot of people wrong in terms of what a female-led superhero movie could do at the box office, or just a female-led genre film. But also, beyond that, beyond just being like cool in an action film, just the fact that she used the leverage of that new power to be someone who publicly, for example, got Brett Ratner disassociated with the future Wonder Woman movie, someone who's been accused of all sorts of sexual misconduct, and even though there was a great deal of money riding on that, sort of made the stand and knew that she was valued enough to be able to make that stand.
Yeah, and I think they'd only been giving her like short contracts or moved in movie contracts or something, and after Wonder Woman came out, they fucked themselves because now she can command whatever the hell she wants.
Yeah, and she's like very humble about it. She said, there were lots of other people that were making that same stand. It's hard to imagine like Patty Jenkins was going to let Ratner be involved or whatever, but...
And look, we need to say that obviously Patty Jenkins is a big part of why Wonder Woman was successful this year as well.
Yeah, but I think as we've sort of touched on a lot in the discussion today, people seem to be, if it's not right in front of their eyes, they don't think about it as much. And so I think that's the thing. We talk about superheroes and iconography, and that is what Gal Gadot is. She was like an icon for that. I would argue my other sort of choice beyond her would be Carrie Fisher, who's also become a really strong icon and symbol of a greater... I love that she's become this symbol of resistance. And then I love that, even though she wasn't with us this year, the fact that Last Jedi echoes a lot of her thoughts and ideas and... continues to put that really strong message out and like cements her even more as a symbol of resistance and independence. So yeah, there we go. They are our awards. It's been a wonderful year, and thank you everybody for sharing this year with us. We've really got to run, don't we? We've got to be
Sure
somewhere.
do.
So yeah, thank you. Go to fruitlesspursuits.com to find out everything we're doing and links to all our stuff. We've loved being here, and yeah.
We will. Well, we can't say we'll see you next year because by the time when this episode comes out, it will be next year.
That's right.
We'll see you this year, a bit later, next week.
I'm looking forward to seeing what this year has in store for us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Black Panther.
Shape of Water. Lots of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Annihilation. Oh, so many things coming up.
Yeah.
Alrighty. We will catch you next time.
Tinkety-donk.
Tinkety-donk.